Oh, sorry, Matt, we're going to start the meeting. Great, I see it in the corner. Okay, wonderful.
Recording
Good
in progress.
morning, everybody. It's nice to see some people in person. Nice to see everybody on screen. I'm calling to order the Connecticut State Advisory Council for Special Education. Our committee meeting on Wednesday, April 24th at 9:08 a.m. I'm Susan Yankee. I am the chair as well as a parent member. So during this meeting, we're going to ask you to say your name. Oh, wait, actually, we don't even need to do that before you're speaking. Okay, so we know we're going to use acronyms, right? So before you use an acronym, if you could just explain what it is quickly. Two of the main ones we use are the SAC, which is us, the Connecticut State Advisory Council for Special Ed, and CSDE, which is the Connecticut State Department of Education. Council purpose and function. The SAC brings together the CSDE educators and related service providers, administrators, legislators, parents, as well as students and persons with disabilities, all dedicated to supporting the education of students with disabilities. Through these meetings, our priorities and recommendations for the CSDE and the Connecticut General Assembly are formed. There's more information on the Connecticut State Department of Education website under the SAC. And along with past meeting videos and our annual reports. Introductions and roles. Okay, I'm going to first go around in the room here, and then I will call your name as I see you on the screen. My vision isn't super good today. It's so far away. So if I miss somebody, let me know. Oh, never mind. Jen set me up with a little teeny screen next to me. Okay, Amy, sorry to put you on the thing. Would you start with the introduction?
Right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Messenger, and I'm here today as a parent.
Great, wonderful.
I'm John Martin. I am the Director of Student Services for East Haddon Public Schools, and I'm here as a representative of Contes.
Thank you.
And I'm Tom Kosker. I'm here representing Disability Rights Connecticut, Protection Advocacy System, and I'm also a parent.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Brian Klimkowitz from the State Department of Education, Special Education Division Director.
Wonderful. You already know me.
Morning, Jennifer Lucier, parent representative.
Good morning, Catherine Stem representing ADS BESB.
Good morning, Dawn Digao. I am representing the Connecticut parent educators, and I'm also a parent.
Good morning, Kim Williamson. I represent speech language pathologists.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Missy.
Good morning, Missy Wrigley, and I am a parent representative.
Wonderful. Anna.
Good morning, everyone. Anna Wittig. I am Chief Administrator of Oak Hill School, representing here state-approved private special education schools.
Thank you. Lori.
Morning, everyone. I'm Lori Fortuna, and I'm a parent stakeholder.
Thank you. Jeff.
Yes, Jeffrey Spar. I'm a parent stakeholder. I'm also the chairman of the legislative committee, also a founding member and of the Jolie fan club. And I went to the CT had a special ed thing the other day, and I got a pair of sunglasses from Oak Hill School. And I know that Anna always wears, but Anna, these are, says Oak Hill right here, so thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jolie.
Of course. What kind of introduction? That was the best introduction I've ever had, Jeff. Jolie Medina, assistant to the council, to the State Advisory Council, and Director Brian Klimkowitz.
Thank you. Jovi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joviana Morales, and I am a parent representative.
Wonderful. Dimpy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dimpy Malvania, and I'm a parent stakeholder. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I am here as a parent stakeholder.
Thank you. Denise.
Good morning. I'm Denise Drummond. I'm with the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity and Opportunity, and I'm also a parent.
Thank you so much. Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Hampton from the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, and I represent the families that call our center.
Thank you so much. Lewis.
Might be on mute. Maybe.
Lewis.
Might be on mute or away.
Okay. All right, Lewis, we will have you introduce yourself later. Louis Talarita. Okay. Next is public comment. Do we have anybody, Jolie? We don't have anyone here.
We do not have anyone here, but can I just, I think we have Jake Shumbo trying to.
Oh, Jake's here?
I think we have him trying to access the meeting. So I'm gonna take off for a couple minutes if
Okay.
you don't mind, but we do not have I do not have anyone for public comment.
Okay. All right. Are you going to help Jake?
I am. I'll
Thank
be
you
back.
so much, Jolie.
You are very welcome.
Thank you very much. Public comment. Next, we have consent agenda. So we have, I have to pull out my minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to review. Okay, first is we need to approve the Wednesday, January 24th. Meeting minutes need to be approved. Are there any corrections to these minutes? Anybody? No? Okay. Wonderful. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. A second?
I, Joviana, second the motion.
Oh, sorry. Abstentions from anyone who did not attend the January meeting. That was the one when we were at the LOB. Okay, all in favor? Denise. Denise, okay, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Wonderful. The minutes from January 24th have now been approved. Next, Wednesday, March 27th, meeting minutes need to be approved. And I actually do have a couple of corrections. And I know I have it written down, so I'll give them to Jolie later. But on the second page, under consent agenda, it says Susan Y. asked for motion. Jane Hampton Smith makes sense.
She did make sense.
You did make sense, but we. But do you know, Jane, what you were making sense about?
Everything she says.
How unusual.
Okay. Okay, it's for the meeting minutes. That's all, full council approval. Okay.
Makes sense of everything.
Okay, so we'll figure that one out. And then on the last page, right above the schedule, it says adjourn. It has a question mark, makes motion to adjourn, and question mark seconds. Does anybody remember what at the LOB? Tom, I see you raising your hand.
Pick a name.
Pick a name?
Pick a name.
You know what? I'll go back and watch the video.
You actually don't need a second to adjourn.
Beautiful.
There you go.
If I don't remember that at the end of the meeting, please remind me. Okay, anybody else have any corrections?
This is Missy.
Yes?
Under the consent agenda, that same sentence that you were referring to,
Yeah.
Jane making sense.
Uh-huh.
It says Denise Drummond and Allison Copey A, and I'm not sure what A stands for.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Abstain.
Abstain? Oh, yeah, I forgot that part.
I did not.
Okay.
I did not finish the sentence. Guys, bear with me on those minutes.
Okay.
There's one other one.
Go ahead, Missy.
On, I think it's the last page, the very first sentence.
Um,
Hartford Public Schools dot hair findings.
Fair findings. Thank you.
I had a correction to make.
Go
Okay.
ahead. Well, wait, Missy, were you done?
Yep.
Okay, Jeff, go
Just
ahead.
those
Please.
two.
Yes, on page 3,
Uh,
under the round table,
Yep.
it should say Jeffrey Spar announces, and it should be on April 4th, the annual autism acceptance program event.
The annual autism accept. Oh. Done. Thank you.
Thank you.
April 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else with any more corrections for the Wednesday, March 27th meeting? No? Okay, wonderful. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes with corrections?
So moved, Missy.
Missy, okay. Is there someone who would like to do a second? Okay. Joshua? Abstentions from those who did not attend the meeting. Catherine. And who else? Amy too, okay. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes with corrections, please raise your hand or your hand button on the screen. Wonderful. The Wednesday, March 27, 2024 meeting minutes are approved. Okay, now we move on to, actually, has anybody quickly joined us? Would you like to introduce yourself and your role on the council?
Morning, everybody. My name is Brian Smith, Assistant Regional Director for the Department of Developmental Services, representing the people that we support.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm here, Louis Talarita. I apologize. My doctor's office called and everything. So my apologies. Yes, I'm here, State Department of Education. I represent the McKinney Vento as state coordinator.
Great. And Mary Beth?
Yes, I just got on. I have been having problems all morning. Sorry, getting on. But I am representing higher education, Mary Beth Bruder.
Thank you and welcome. Were we able to get Jake on?
I don't see Jake and I have not heard back from him yet. So
Here he is.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Jake Shumbo. Could you introduce yourself and your role?
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for my tardiness. My name is Jake Shumbo, and I am a student representative.
Thank you, Jake. Welcome. So good to see you.
You as well. Thank you.
Okay, we're now moving on to old business. So executive committee report. First, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. If you are a student or a parent or a person with a disability where you are not here as an agency, we do have mileage for today's meeting. If you drove in, if you could fill this out, bless you. So the May 22nd meeting is now firmly on the calendar. We're definitely doing it. It's virtual from 9 to 10:30 a.m. It has said tentative for most of the year, but now it's virtual we're doing it. And is there an update from CSDE what we can use instead of Doodle Pro for meeting invites? Have they figured that out yet? Jolie and I were talking about that, but do you know, Jolie? For scheduling, for meeting invites. So when we have, say, a legislative meeting, it's in a Doodle Pro, it'll say, check your availability. These are the options. Because I think that would make it much more streamlined than us sending 3 million emails back.
Doesn't work, you're saying?
Yeah, we can't use Doodle Pro.
Oh, you can't use it.
The CSD.
I got it, yeah, I got it.
Do you know?
Email.
Email. Oh, Ryan.
Yeah.
Or someone can just use it.
That's right.
I mean, one of us could set it up if need be on our own email.
That's right.
They have that free, I mean, it's free option, it's not like cost.
Okay.
You don't have to have pro, you can just do it right.
So maybe the committee chair.
Jeff, you're one of the committee chairs, Catherine.
Be initiated. Right?
Yeah, you could initiate a Doodle Pro for next time you have a
You guys
meeting.
can answer it.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, and then,
yeah,
and then anything for note taking, I heard there was an option on note taking on AI, and we can't use Otter, but one of the.
Yeah, we need to have more conversations about
Okay.
that. So nothing in place at the time.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to double check on that, because I think it'll also be very helpful in committee meetings.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I mean, we want to be able to take advantage of the technology, but at the same time, there's some complications with that as well. So.
All right, great, thank you. I just wanted to do a quick little cleanup. So special ed task force meeting update. We did not have a meeting this month, but our next meeting is May 7th, and I should have an update for the SAC at our May 22nd meeting. We're still working on the same findings draft document that I had sent to everybody a while ago. We're still figuring that one out. And perfecting it, hopefully. Yeah.
Question on that. What's the timeline? I get confused with all these task forces and all this stuff going on. Is there a timeline on that?
I believe the timeline is July. Am I correct? Does anyone know, Brian, do you know if they moved the task force timeline? Wasn't it everything by July?
Like issuing a report.
The timeline for
the task force?
Task force?
Was January.
For findings.
The report was due January.
Okay.
For the first year, and then there's a subsequent report for February. So we're working, we're
Oh, it is
a few months beyond.
Is
the
it an
deadline.
annual thing? Like, is this an ongoing or is there time limited on?
No,
this?
it's time limited. At the end of that second year, the task force
So we're in
disperses.
in the start of the second year right now,
Correct.
or middle of the second year. Okay. That's why I couldn't remember the exact details.
Yeah, because I thought they'd switched it the last legislative.
They extended it 1
Extended
year.
it, yeah.
Yeah, originally it was for 1 year and they extended it for the second year.
It's hard to get things done in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, great.
It
Thank
doesn't
you.
mean it won't be extended. It could be extended
Extended
beyond
again.
that, but as of right now, the final
you.
report is due February 25.
I knew Brian would have that information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The update is the ad hoc committee is the student safety and emergencies. We're having our first online meeting Thursday, May 2nd from 9 to 10 a.m. We're going to have William Turley, who is the school safety program lead for the state of Connecticut for the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. He's the gentleman, I believe, that crafted the Annex M for students with disabilities. And so we're going to have him to help us give us any information that we need. And then Tanya Iokono from the Center for the Connecticut Center for School Safety and Crisis Prevention at Western Connecticut State University. And Representative Comey isn't here, but Representative Comey, I want to thank her for connecting me with the center. And I had a meeting with them because I didn't know that they were working on this. And so the committee, just a quick reminder, Tom, Joshua, Anna, Jane, Dimpy, and Representative Comey. And if anyone wants to come, please let Jolie know, and she'll just she'll send you a meeting invite, even if you just want to be a fly on the wall and don't want to be a part of the committee. Okay, wonderful. Next. Oh wait, our restraint and seclusion and least restrictive environment work groups are meeting directly after this meeting. Just want to remind you, we're getting an overview on the High Road report from the Office of Child Advocacy and Disability Rights Connecticut. And we want to encourage everybody to stay afterwards, even if you're not in these work groups, because we're going to be working on our priorities and recommendations for LRE and restraint and seclusion. And that is it. I have a membership committee report, please, Ms. Catherine Song.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Okay, so the membership committee met earlier this month on April 11th, and we discussed recruitment strategies. I want to thank Jolie for reaching out to so many of you to find out what your plans are in terms of continuing. And I'm really happy to hear that the majority of you do plan to continue, so thank you. We do anticipate, sadly, one vacancy. Tammy expressed to me even a year ago that she is pursuing other things, so her position will become vacant in July. So if you know anyone who is interested in joining the council as a parent representative or an adult with a disability, please let me know. We do have some membership surveys on file, but we also want to give other people the opportunity to apply. So please encourage anyone who's interested to apply, say within the next month, because we would love to fill that vacancy with a qualified candidate in July, if we can, when Tammy's term ends. So yeah, thank you everyone for your willingness to continue. And we're also going to post the membership survey on the SAC website. The committee's just been finessing some language that we'd like to have accompany the survey, so that should be up and running very soon. And then those are the big topics that we discussed. I would like to pass the baton over to Brian Smith if there isn't anything anyone else wants to add in regards to membership, so that Brian can,
Just one quick.
Yeah.
Because I know we've been talking and trying to get legislators. We have Robin, which is
Yeah.
awesome. We had some interested, thanks to the LOB breakfast that we did. Any traction? I have not heard any traction on them. I've been staying in touch with the ones that we've heard about, just periodically, like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Sort of thing, just to kind of keep the conversation going. And again, it's impossible in March, April, and May right now to get them because they're too busy, right?
And Jolie sent out an invite for them to just come visit. as well.
Right,
Yes.
right, right. So yeah, no traction on, no one's like,
not at the moment. So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
But Jolie does send them invitations, so they definitely.
Right, so
hear
people that
about
ask, get on that list,
Yeah,
that's good,
they're-
that's at
right.
least helpful right there. And again, I don't expect them to come these couple meetings, because it's hard, but maybe they'll come in the fall or something.
That's what I hope too. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad that they actually want to be informed.
Yeah, because some of them
Interested.
express pretty strong interest, they like really want to be involved, and, you know, some of them are pretty strong people at the legislature that can make some hay for us, you know what I mean, so to speak, and really get some things done, so that's awesome. Cool, thank you.
Ms. Welco, Jeff also has his hand up.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, my perpetual question. So I wanted to know if I can get an update, maybe I think it's in Brian's court possibly, about those who have been appointed, whose appointments have expired, if we're gonna be getting something from the governors. I know mine's expired a couple of years ago.
No,
I still haven't been appointed.
no,
Oh my.
no information to share, Jeff.
More than that.
Yeah, I never received my letter either.
I.
Well, what are we doing to address that? I guess I should say. I mean, I know you haven't gotten it in the mailbox. I'm sure you would have reported it, but is there someone we could contact? We just go right to the governor's office? Is there some person I could contact?
There is, yeah, we've been in touch with the person they've reached out periodically to our office, it's out of our hands, I'll say. So we can continue to inquire, so, I mean, some folks have letters and others don't, that's just kind of the reality that we're kind of, that has been part of our history with the advisory council, but it doesn't stop the work from happening, so. I'm hopeful, Jeff, but
So you're saying that they were reaching
it's out of our hands.
When they reach out to your office, what are they reaching out? If they're asking or telling, or what are they saying?
So I would say historically, about annually, we'll get contacted from the governor's office inquiring and asking about the membership. And Jolie and Sean and I complete a document, a form to let folks know which members have left, which members have been appointed without formally being appointed. And we submit that to, on an annual basis. We just submitted it. I don't know if Jolie's on, I want to say last week or the week before. And that's documented. So all of the legislative committees have to report that on an annual basis. So that's our most regular formal communication in that context. While we're in touch with them, we also indicate which members are still waiting for reappointment letters or appointment letters from the governor's office. So that's kind of where we leave it. And we don't reach out very regularly after that. So, I mean, that's just something we have to
I think
talk about in general.
I mean, the reality is it doesn't impact our work much, right? I mean, so this has been a problem since I've been on it for many years. Like it doesn't impact our work really. It's nice, they're working on it. Would be nice to have those letters. The reality is we've been doing this work and it hasn't changed what we do. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't get too hung up on it.
I know, just the lawyer part of me says that if
That sounds like a
if it expired in 2020, then you wonder about any of the particular actions or something like that, if we ever were to take some serious action, so.
When Brian stops listening to us, then we'll have to, push a little.
I think I was appointed by Governor Trumbull, I think.
Yeah. So we are working with the agencies though on an annual basis. I think the membership committee has done a wonderful job with reaching out to our agencies when those letters are needed. We're working right now with USD1 and corrections, and so their commissioner is aware and has reached out as recently as last week to ask about the details and the time of the appointment. So that's good. And then of course the commissioner appoints parent members as well. So that is something we do have direct control over and we'll try to stay on top of. But for that, the number of folks that are appointed by the governor will continue to do what we can.
All right, thank you very much. Catherine, anything else?
Yeah, so Brian Smith is the chair of the nominating committee, which is like a subcommittee of the membership committee. And he's going to talk to you about nominations. So take it away, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. I apologize for my tardiness. I went right by 26K.
I've done that.
You told me.
That's not hard.
So good morning, everybody. I just wanted to touch base about nominations. We're at that time where we're going to be looking for and seeking nominations for not only the chair, but also the vice chair of the SAC. One of the three qualifiers is that at least one, if not both, need to be parents or an individual, not department people. So at least one of them, but both can be a parent and or an individual. So I'm gonna kind of open it up, and if anybody has thought about any ideas around their personal interests and or maintaining current leadership, whatever it may be, we're kind of opening the floor up for consideration of nominations for both chair and vice chair of the SAC. If there's somebody who's interested.
Come on, parents.
I feel
Come on, Amy.
Lori has her hand up, right?
The hand.
Jeff does as well.
Jeff does.
I think
Almost it's a
that-
remaining.
That might be
hand
left
up.
over.
Is it a lingering?
Oh, John has his hand up too.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with the appointee from Governor Trumbull, Jeffrey. I'll go with your hand first.
I want to second the nomination of Jen Lucier. She does an
I thought
amazing
you were
job.
nominating yourself. Come on.
And no, she does an amazing job. She's fantastic. She really is on top of everything. So I couldn't ask for a better person. You know, if you needed a vice chair, I would put myself there. Three rows back. I could do like be a vice chair, but Jennifer is just amazing and all the stuff she does. I second that.
Mr. Metcalf, I saw you waving your hand on the screen. Do you want to comment?
Just wanted to join the Jan Lucier bandwagon.
I'm on board as well for that nomination. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jake. Any other nominations for vice chair?
Right. Oh, Jen.
Okay. We'll now move on to nominations for chair.
Huh?
I'd like to nominate Susan Yankee as chair.
Okay. We have a nomination for Susan Yankee as chair.
Jeff's got his hand raised again.
Jeff, is that a legacy hand?
No, it's not. No, it's a new hand.
I'm worried about your rotator cuff.
No. Well, I actually have had 2 rotator cuff surgeries, so. But no, I mean, Susan has just stepped forward and she's just has continued to lead the parade, and I couldn't say anything better about it. And she's done an amazing job. She also runs an efficient meeting, I have to say, not only with the full council, but also the executive and the planning and the scheduling, and then also the attending to the other different things. And I just wanted to number one is thank her, and then to renominate her if she would accept it. That's we have to do a mental status check if she accepts it, but I wanted to say that.
Okay. Any other recommendations or nominations, excuse me, for chair? Okay. So we've closed our nominations for chair and vice chair. Right now we have the interim. The nominees are our interim. Current, thank you. My words out today. Chair and vice chair. So unless there's additional nominations, we'll put those recommendations for vote moving forward.
Okay, oh, you're in charge, sorry.
No, just saying thanks, Brian. Thank you very much. And again, if anyone is interested, please contact Brian because he's the chair of the nominating committee, and we can provide you with more information about the roles and duties of chair and vice chair.
So if you want to reach out to me, Brian, brian.k.smith@ct.gov.
And I just want to say thank you very, very much. And I couldn't have done anything without Jennifer. She's on my speed dial, and Courtney and Brian. Everyone has been so helpful. But anybody who wants to come to an executive committee meeting and kind of, because we need to start thinking about future transition. Anyone wants to come and kind of see what it's all about, please, our schedule, we can let you know. When's our next executive committee meeting? Anybody know? It's coming up soon. Jen knows. See, that's why Jen is who Jen is.
May 1.
May 1st? Yeah, so May 1st, is it a 9 a.m. meeting?
9:30.
9:30 meeting. So if you're interested in coming and seeing, we'd appreciate it. Because we need to start thinking about the future. So thank you so much. Anything else?
I like that added point of offering the opportunity for folks to come to executive meetings, because it will give you a new lens and a different perspective from this committee, but also there needs to be succession planning. So
yeah, definitely.
So if you have a bit of interest now, definitely join one of those future conversations. Thank you for that recommendation. I think it's extremely valuable.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jeffrey Spar, as legislative committee report, pretty pleased.
Yeah, this is going to be a quick one as it's winding down. We had submitted a written testimony on a number of bills back on March 11th, 2024. Just, the way the legislative thing, happens is there's like, you'll see like sometimes in your lawn, you'll see these little sprouts coming up and they don't necessarily all grow into, big oak trees. And so a lot of the bills are set there. We look at them. We will write a letter in support when we are favorable to the bill. And then they all kind of winnow down. So the one that's kind of made it to the end gate here is a bill which is 5416. It's called an act concerning various revisions to the education statutes. And as you would guess, that's just like a quilt patchwork of a number of different things. But within that, there's a section 7, and it has to do with the notification provisions for when a student is placed in seclusion or restraint. It used to be, well, as it currently is, I should say, because it hasn't passed yet. As it currently is that the announcement is supposed to be made to the parent or guardian that a student has been placed in physical restraint or seclusion. Presently, it says not later than 24 hours after the event. What was proposed by us and others and is in the bill is that the notification would be, quote, on the day of the student being placed in restraint. So that's one thing. It's going to speed it up from 24 hours to the day of. The second part that's important is that the notice, it says that such notice shall, if possible, be provided by means of electronic communication, including but not limited to electronic mail or cellular mobile telephone. And that was good because technically speaking, if you just drop the letter in the box, oh, by the way, your child's been placed in restraint the day of, I recently got like an Easter card the other day, it's like, come on. So anyhow, so they're going to make it the not only the day of, but where possible electronic mail. One of the things that we wanted to have though was something that hasn't made it, was having to be in the language that's selected by the parent or guardian, but that's not a part of it, but that's something we could look for the future. And I had reached out to Representative Comey yesterday to see if there's anything else in the hopper, and there's nothing really big. I went onto the education subcommittee yesterday and looked to see all their bills. There's like a graph you can see. None of them have really gotten that far yet. So this seems to be the one that we have. And that's it.
Hey, Jeff, do you know if that one's coming up for vote at all?
On the website, I'm on here. It says that the last activity that it had was on April 22nd, so just 2 days ago. It says it was on the House calendar. It was of importance is it was also reviewed and found that there wasn't going to be an appropriations impact. So that's always good. That's good to hear. And it's got a favorable reports. So it's supposed to be on the House calendar. That was as of 2 days ago was listed. I'm not sure. I don't have the calendar to see when it's come up for vote, but it's fairly fresh.
I think so.
Jeff, Also, this is Susan. I sent you an email, I'm trying to find it, about, there is that bill about they're trying to establish a bureau for the deaf so that there's, the one that was unestablished. Is that in this bill?
I listen.
Because I think that'll be a great resource for our students who are deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf blind. So it's a place that there's like interpreters on staff and someone where you can reach out for resources. And I didn't know. I was hoping Representative Comey was.
Was that gonna be under aging disability, wasn't it?
It always has been.
I know, I think
It is aging and disability.
Right, it was under, and I thought there was.
I think it's
Bill,
maybe.
you were waiting to hear back from Representative Comey, and then
Okay.
sent an email. And I think that she said she was going to keep her ears open. She did send an email. I'm trying to.
Oh, okay.
My computer's kind of frozen, so I'm sorry about that.
Right, years ago.
They were just off to the Texas too, right?
Yeah, under the prior governor. Okay, I was just wondering if you knew anything about that update. Okay. Jeff, anything else? Future meetings possibly? We don't know yet because we don't know what's moving, right?
Yeah,
It'll happen in the next 2 weeks.
There's 2 weeks left.
It's done in 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, and there's not much.
I don't see that there's, unless there's something,
There's no more public hearing. It's all done. It's all done.
Okay.
yeah, okay, so she wrote back, but she didn't address, I just found her email now.
Oh, okay.
But she just, she was talking more about the restraint thing. But she didn't really address that issue, because I did reach out to her. Let's see, hold on, included the language in the bill. No, she was writing to me really on the notification restraint seclusion, but I can follow up and see if there's anything on that.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to the SAC because that bill about notification was something that we put forward. So I want to say thank you to everybody. And thank you, Jeff. Okay, did someone just join us? Oh, Lena, welcome. All right, we are now on to roundtable. We're on to new business. Right? Did I skip anything? No? Good. Okay. I'm on time now. Okay, raise your hand or your screen hand if you have any updates from your stakeholders. We'd love to hear positive aspects of student programming as well. This and also we're here to hear unmet needs to inform our priorities and recommendations. You can pass, and remember, events not announced here, but emailed to Jennifer Lucier, and then they're sent out to the full SAC. Okay, is there anybody with stakeholder updates? Ms. Catherine Sun.
Start. Okay, so good news. We are recruiting for 2 teachers, and we're going to be conducting interviews this Friday. So I'm excited. These are 2 new positions. So hopefully I will have 2 teachers on board even before the end of the school year. We recently held an in-service training for education team members who work with children who are blind and visually impaired, including multiple impairments. There was a focus on mobility. We had a waiting list for that training, so I think we're going to repeat it again next year. And then on May 21st, we have a training for birth to 3 providers. In addition to the regular day-to-day work we're doing, we also have events for students and families planned. Before the end of the school year, we have a program at New Pond Farm for the birth to 3 preschool population and their family members and siblings. We recently this was really kind of a neat thing, and I was so sorry I couldn't actually be there. It was very spur of the moment. There is a hockey team in Connecticut with blind hockey players, the Hartford Brailers, and they contacted us and asked if we were interested in attending a game they had. I think it was in Bridgeport about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Were you there? No, I didn't get to go there. Did your student go? No. Okay. And we were really worried no one was going to show up, and there were about 65 people who were affiliated with BESB who were there. So families, friends, children, siblings, everyone had a blast. A lot of people made connections. So we're hoping that we can repeat that again in the not too distant future. So Just really good things to report, I'm happy to say.
Wonderful.
Railer.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing because the goalie is the position that has to have the least vision. It's completely different. The puck has a rattle and it's amazing. They're
Yeah.
excellent players.
And I can't remember, do they all have occluders? I wasn't there. Not all of them do, okay, all right, have you seen one of their games?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, so I hope to make it to the next one. So that's it for me.
Okay, great, wonderful. All right, anybody else? I see Ms. Jane Hampton.
Well, I tend to bring the unmet needs to the table, so that's my role. And honestly, from the last SAC meeting, things haven't changed tremendously. We still have people reporting IEPs not being translated into the languages that exist. I'd say there's a big block of things that go under the category of behavioral placement issues. That can include a child having their day shortened, being removed to a setting that is more restrictive, more outplacements due to behavior that is being hard for the district to control. All of this wraps up to and probably is connected to lack of staff when districts just don't have the bodies that they need to support children appropriately. But I want to add to that lack of staff, it's one of our areas of interest, but districts are starting to lay teachers off. We're seeing lots and lots of articles in the newspaper about districts laying off staff, even though we're talking about not having enough staff. So I don't really understand. That might be something our work group needs to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes, Brian.
So the Department of Developmental Services has done a couple different things as of late. So for those who might not know, we do now have a Children's Services Division within the agency with a manager, case management supervisor, case managers, and other support staff that continues to grow. Primary function around that is working with the youth who have resources assigned to them through our agency under the age of 22, and working in collaboration with school districts and our peers at DCF on some of those individuals who are outplaced and or shared by several agencies. So that's going well. There's been a shift of cases, and the settling of the dust, shall we say, is still ongoing. They do have an education support specialist position. I always get the title wrong. So she started recently. She came from an area district out east of Connecticut. She was a very strong candidate. So I'm glad to see that she got the nod. And they're going to be adding in another 1 or 2 support clinical staff for that unit. So exciting on that, because that way we have a specialized unit that can focus in on youth needs throughout Connecticut who are getting services or in need of services from the agency. So the other piece of it with the legislation passed, we did post and are in process of having everybody come on board. More transition advisor positions in Connecticut for DDS. Prior to the legislation passing in these positions, we had 9 positions, 3 in each of the 3 regions for DDS. At the end of the day, once everybody makes it to our offices, we'll have 18. So we're doubling up the ranks of transition advisors statewide. It may look the landscape may look different based on the regions, just because like I'm coming from the West region for many, many moons, we have 5 offices. Whereas in the South region where I work out now, we have 3. So the disbursement of those staff is going to look a little different, but the ultimate goal is really to start engaging youth younger, as young as 16 versus what we typically did at 18, and really start that engagement earlier, and that relationship with our agency, making sure people are connected with DDS who very well might need to be or should be connected, because we're finding some gaps there. And also in improving relations with our district colleagues and peers. So the hope is with smaller geography that each of these transition advisors will cover, there'll be a lot more opportunity for engagement with those districts, families, and youth at an earlier age. And as they progress through those transition years, we'll have a greater level of involvement and role. But at least that information sharing and that connection can start earlier. I do realize in 14 transitions, the conversation happens in schools. we can entertain some referral based on those needs for those youth who are very interested in wanting us at the table. There's that possibility as well. But the real focus was the dip from the 18 to 22 to 16 to 22. Stabilize, see how that goes, and go from there. So we're really excited about that. I believe the West region is still looking to fill a couple vacancies. We had candidates and then some declined, or they picked other positions they had interviewed for. So there's a couple vacancies still needing to be addressed in the western part of Connecticut. And we had two candidates who accepted offers who elected to stay in their educational roles until the end of the school year. So those two new hires won't be coming on board until June when their school seasons end. One of which I know is in my region in the south. So we made those accommodations for those two candidates. So really excited about that and looking forward to seeing where this can go as far as greater involvement in schools across Connecticut. So any suggestions from the folks in the school world, I'll send them my way because I'm trying to come up with a consistent approach with these 18 employees statewide. So that's all I got.
Wow, thank you.
All.
Mr. Kosker.
I first have two questions. Is that okay if I ask some questions?
That's what this is
Do you have
about.
a sense of the numbers on the under 18, the children's division or whatever you call it group?
The
Of
number
clients of individuals like right now that receive services, DDS services.
So
Obviously there's a ton on the wait, not on the wait list, but on the call center, like there's some kids out there, but they're actually receiving services.
So I believe there's, don't quote me on this, please not.
Not quoted, it's just rough numbers.
If I believe there's 7 or 8 case managers in that unit.
Okay, wow.
Dedicated to that unit. So these were new positions. And we had about 5 of the 8, I believe, were internal transfers and 3 from outside. They carry about a caseload of 35.
Okay, so
there's very little room for growth on each of them. So if you did simple math of 8 times 35, that's what.
Well, I mean, you would expect that number to kind of stay consistent because they're exiting and coming.
They'll exit, some will come in behind, exactly. But that's just those receiving services that need the case management.
Understood, there's tons on the call center.
There's others that they'll be monitoring and tracking that will fall under their umbrella. So that would, no longer be kind of the region's responsibility at one point.
Yeah. And roughly on the transition side, going to that piece, you said you went from 9 to 18, which is amazingly super awesome. We're getting to 18.
Somebody heard me. I said at least double.
Even talking about us for up. And roughly how many students, I think I have a general idea, are transitioning every year out of education?
Statewide, it's anywhere between 350 and 450.
That's what I thought, okay. Roughly.
Around there. Some years it's a little.
And obviously they're handling a spread of ages, they're handling all the way down to 16 is the goal, because you're not just handling those 350.
So on average, a transition advisor could be interfacing with anywhere between 300 to 500 students.
Right. Yeah.
Through the span of those years.
Right. And then they'll focus on the ones that are actually transitioning out is the major focus.
So the last 3 years, maybe 4, there'll be a more heavy involvement, whereas the other ones are more of that.
Okay.
Get to know, getting resources, answer questions, supplemental eligibility, talking about benefits, supportive decision-making conversations, things like that.
Super happy, that's much needed, that's awesome, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
I guess I can give my update. Since
Yes.
I'm talking already. So Disability Rights Connecticut continue to work on, I'll say much like Jane, some of the same things we've been working on. Restraint seclusions, an area we continue to focus on. These restrictive outplacements, stuff like that. You'll hear later today. We'll do a presentation on the high road investigation that we did. So we'll highlight some of that stuff that we did around that. So yeah, I think a lot of the work we have been doing, again, our focus over the last couple of years has been very systemic in nature. I have not been as engaged with our intake calls and stuff. We continue to take calls. We have an ed clinic that I've shared with y'all before. That's ongoing. So a lot of those families and whatnot that call in, they'll come to our ed clinic sessions and have conversations with them. Nothing outside of what I mentioned is raising to the top as highlight issues. Yeah, so that's about it. Nothing crazy new to report.
Wonderful. Anybody else? Been on the screen? No? Okay, great. So we actually have a quick break scheduled. Is everybody okay with that we get back here at 10:15? But you want to push on and then take the break before our priority review? Because we have an hour and 15 minutes. We won't have another break for an hour and 15 minutes. We have 3 presentations, so. How about we take a 10-minute break? How's that?
Hard 10.
A hard 10.
Man, what was in your Starbucks?
All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. So you can pause the recording, that would be wonderful, whoever's in charge of that. Okay. Next, we have the BSE update.
Recording in progress.
Bureau of Special Education.
Thanks, folks. Can you hear us online okay?
We can.
Yes, I can.
Apparently not.
Maybe not? Oh, you know what I did? I muted them. Hold on one second.
We're not allowing them to talk, but they can hear us, but they can't talk. Raise your hand.
To not be in, can you minimize the screen a little bit?
Oh, boy.
Can you hear me?
Muted us and they don't know how to unmute us. That's one moment.
Okay.
That's what's going
There
on
we
right
go.
now.
Got it.
So they're figuring that out.
Down.
Our resident tech guy, Josh, this is good.
Yay!
Yay!
Now we can hear you.
All right.
Awesome.
So, yeah, sorry about that little technical difficulty on our side, but we can hear you now. You can hear us. And I just wanted to, first of all, before Tom gets started, thank Tom for his work. And the IDEA grant is an important component, obviously, of the work that happens on a day-to-day basis on the local level and also the state level. And Tom this year has been also working closely with Alicia Tracus on our team at the Bureau of Special Education for all things related to grant work in the IDEA. And so, Tom, really appreciate your time. And I know you've done presentations in the past for the State Advisory Council, but we're really, there's always new information. And this year in particular, we've been working on and helping to support our districts around what's called the GEPA. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It has to do with equity work as it relates to the IDEA, ensuring equitable access across all of our students. And that's been a particular area of focus for the Office of Special Education Programs. And although we don't have our final numbers as of today, we know those hopefully will be coming by the end of the month. So we're kind of checking on a daily basis to help support the districts, and right now utilizing the same numbers from the previous year. As you know, this work with the IDEA grant drives all of our training and technical assistance, or I should say most of. There's also some other components of funding, but your insight and your priorities help us shape and drive the work as we articulate our grant to OSUP as well as to support the local districts. So Tom, take it away, and we appreciate your time and expertise.
Well, thank you, Brian, and good morning, everybody. As Brian said, I'm Tom Pedro. Those who don't know me, I'm an education consultant with the Bureau of Special Education in relationship to the IDEA. I'm the IDEA fiscal manager. And in general, as Brian said, the IDEA grant is a critical part of our work. And you, as the SAC, of being one of our major stakeholders, having this information and knowing about the process will certainly make us all more educated and moving forward to support students with disabilities. Those who know me know that I like to start out with some inspiring quotes. And if we're from Michael J. Fox, our challenges don't define us, our actions do. And we do know that there's a lot of challenges that face us in relationship to both students with disabilities and the districts trying to get all these pieces that Brian was talking about in relationship to even equity and these components. But it's our actions and being able to have the IDEA grant and be able to be a good steward with those resources and being able to support students with disabilities. That's the bottom line and where we're working forward and towards. So to get started as well, whenever I'm with a group of people, I like to establish what the purpose of the IDEA grant is. And the purpose of the grant is to assist with the excess costs of providing special education and related services to children with disabilities. Whenever you're wondering about that, go back to this as our driving mission in relationship to the use of IDEA funds. The state application is what we're going to be starting and talking about with, and this is going to be federal fiscal year 24. This grant is being applied for by the state of Connecticut, and there are two sections in relationship to IDEA that we apply for these resources. There's the IDEA Part B 611, which is for ages 3 to 21, and that's actually through now the 22nd birthday of the school year that the student is attending. And then there's IDEA Part B, Section 619. That's only for ages 3 to 5 years old. In May of 24, we have to submit our application to the Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP, in Washington, D.C. And the grant runs 27 months, meaning it starts, there's a flow-through piece that comes at the beginning in July for the LEAs, and they do an application piece, and I'll go over that in a moment. But then the grant from the federal government starts 10/1 and goes all the way through 2 years. And so it'll start this year 10/1/24 and go all the way through 9/30/26. Eligible LEAs, as I said before, are a sub-grantee, a sub-recipient of the grant, and they complete an application in relationship to demonstrate that they're in compliance and meet eligibility for the use of IDEA funds. Basically, the application comes to us, and there are two sets of assurances by which that we as a state have to ensure to the federal government that we are eligible for IDEA and have it in place. The description of the use of those funds is explained. We then put in elements of relationship and demonstrate what we're doing, at least the federal laws and then state laws, and we add any new laws that would have been established since the last time we applied for the application. And then there's state maintenance of fiscal support. That's our maintenance of effort to ensure that we're spending the same, if not more, for students with disabilities as the last time we spent money for the state. We just have hot off the presses numbers for that, so that's great news that we have that. Sometimes we don't have this information. And speaking of information, we're still waiting on our charts from the federal government. The government hasn't given us our actual award yet in relationship to what all the states will have. Congress hasn't passed that piece. So we're still going to be using last year's FFY 23 numbers as a way by which to demonstrate what we're going to be doing. And when the FFY 24 numbers come in, we will upload those and place them on our website. There is another piece, is the state significant disproportionality piece. We talked about this before, and we submitted this several years ago in relationship to the formula that we do in the state of Connecticut to ensure districts are measuring their progress in relationship to significant disproportionality around areas of discipline, identification, and placement. That is something by which that we haven't changed since we submitted that several years ago. So that still stays the same. And then as Brian pointed out, is the GEPA piece, the General Education Provision Act. We have elements in relationship to questions we have to answer in relationship to that. They're part of the application. But one interesting note, and I'll be bringing this up a little bit later, is that this now is something that the districts need to answer these 4 questions as well in relationship to how they're going to be using the federal dollars under IDEA to ensure the GEPA Act is in play in relationship to equity. And we'll go over that again in a little bit. So to get started, things to know. The max amount there's a federal formula by which the IDEA grant is established. And this is established with a base rate, and that's adjusted by the census and by poverty. And that's the formula by which that the federal government gives our resources in relationship to the IDEA grant. Other things to know, there are 3 buckets that this money is established for. And again, they give us these parameters. There's an administrative one, that's for administrating Part B activities, pays for salaries primarily, and those resources. There's other state level activities. And as Brian said, this is around the initiatives that we have and the trainings that we have that we push forward in relationship to our partners, say CERC or the RESC Alliance throughout the state of Connecticut, as a mechanism by which to ensure that we're doing our initiatives and that there's monitoring in place, there's enforcement of that, and complaint investigation. And in the IDEA grant application, there's particular line items that we show that we're using these resources for. And then there's the third bucket, which is that flow-through money that I mentioned. The subrecipients, the grants are for eligible LEAs in the state of Connecticut that apply to the State Department of Education, and we then review their applications to ensure that they're in compliance and have eligibility for the use of those funds. This is also by a federal formula that those resources are established. So as we go forward, we fill in our application. We start processing it through the different offices up here, but we have a 60-day public inspection period that's posted on our website, and that started on March 12th and will go through May 12th, because again, the application is due in Washington, D.C. in May. We do print copies of the application and send it to our partners so that there's an availability for the public to go there. And as well, we do comment in the newspapers throughout the state of Connecticut so they can go and look at these if they don't have access to the website. We have a 30-day public comment period, which we're in right now, in relationship to anybody can ask questions about the grant. And that's part of the reason why we're doing our conversation back and forth with you as a stakeholder to hear about the grant and these pieces. We do have 2 public hearings as well that I offer in person that people can come from the general public to ask questions about the grant. I had one last week and I have one actually tomorrow. So again, this is FY23 amounts in relationship to it. So part of the big component within the application is what is the amount. And last year's final award was $159,205,389. The flow-through amount was 138, almost 139 million. And the maximum amount for set aside, that has to do with, again, our activities in relationship to training and these pieces, PD, was just about 16.5 million. And then administrative amounts was 3.8. And this is for 611 funds. I do give it graphic wise so people can see it. Sometimes people like it this way, where administrative is certainly the smallest amount. We have other state activities, and then we have flow through to the LEAs, which is about 88% of the grant. The majority of the grant goes to LEAs for them to, again, assist with the excess costs of providing services and related elements to students with disabilities. I do have the 619 numbers as well from last year. The grant application only focuses on the larger dollars. 619 is a little bit smaller, as you could imagine, because it's for 3 to 5 year olds, a smaller population. But as you may recall, the IDEA 611 covers 3 to 5 year olds as well. So those districts, when they use 619, they make a bright line for using it for those kids for 3 to 5 year olds. But then IDEA 611 can also support those activities. So for the 619 grant was about 5.4 million. Flow through was about 4.4, and other side set aside was 690,000. For your edification, and administration 276. We do only take a part of the maximum set aside for 619 and give resources to the flow through funds. It's a conversation I have with the 619 manager to see what activities that they might have, because part of what happens very often is 619 is somewhat flat funded, while 611 often has an increase. And we want to ensure that districts are having about the same amount as they did the year before, rather than going with those any reduction. So we do take elements from the maximum other set aside. Again, for the graphic piece, administratively 276, other state activity about 690, and then 4.4 that we send along to the LEAs. So in the application itself, the first part has to do with the submission of a statement of assurances that we as the State Department meet those assurances of the application. We also assure that within the confines of IDEA. They break down every single piece in relationship to the law itself. And we say that we are abiding by those and agree with those. If they're ones that we can't abide by, that we would say no, we would have to explain to them in writing why that is the case and when we'd be able to get to the point to meet that. We have not been in that position for many years. As I said before, this is FY23 Excel sheet. This is the interactive spreadsheet that talks about the resources that we have. It starts with the award at the top, and then it's broken down in relationship to administrative dollars, and then as well any set aside money, the 15 million, and then required activities of monitoring, doing mediation. And then on this page, in relationship to direct services and support of technical assistance, 800,000, and breaking down to our other elements. One noted piece is certainly the influx that we've placed into for CT SEDS and having that in place. It's been a major initiative that we've had over the last few years and will continue forward. The next section of the grant actually talks about is Section 4, that piece by which, again, that the Public Act shows that we as the state of Connecticut do at least the minimum of the federal government and then have additional elements in relationship to that we as a state put in place. One key one would be the change, as I mentioned earlier, in the age of eligibility through the 22nd birthday of the school year that they're attending would be an example. Section 5, again, the maintenance of state effort. This is our being able to certify that we support students with disabilities more, same if not more than the last year. And we have just over now $1 billion by which that we, as the state of Connecticut, support students with disabilities throughout the state. These activities include supports to other agencies, and the Bureau of Fiscal Services gets all this information and coordinates it and gives us these numbers by which that we represent to the federal government in relationship to the supports that the state of Connecticut does for students with disabilities. This was the significant disproportionality piece, and as I mentioned before, it's the same as last year. We haven't made any changes to this. So here's the GEPA questions that Brian was mentioning that we answer in the grant. And the 4 of them are means by which that we can explain how our resources are being utilized, in particular, how our existing mission and policies and commitments ensure equitable access to and participation in our activities in relationship to students with disabilities. We put those down, and Brian did a great job in relationship to that of multiple pieces showing components by which that we're doing and that you're working with on the SAC, and that we've reflected those in this answer and as well the others of where we might mention any barriers by which we have for challenges, how have we identified them, and other timelines attached to them, and of which we put in the grant in relationship to those pieces. So that was the application in particular. There are some changes to the flow-through application of those subrecipient application pieces that the LEAs are doing that I wanted to bring to your attention as well, so you know where we are with the application itself. So this is a very good graphic that kind of shows how the different years of the IDEA grant overlap one another. And in the first one, this is fiscal year 22 or federal fiscal year 21. Again, those numbers get kind of confusing of or how we relate to them, where we as a state do it one set of time frame. Ours starts in 7/1, the federal government is 10/1. But that being said, the FY22 grant is over, as you see in the brown here, kind of the tan. That's already be ended. And so the line, the red line, shows about where we are in relationship to things for the grant process. FY23, which is in the second year, so you get the forward amount, which is the elements in relationship to the components for the flow-through piece. The award year itself, it comes 10/1 for the bulk of the money from the federal government. And then the second year would be the tidings period by which you're looking to obligate or expend those funds so that by the end of the grant year, as you say, by the beginning of October, this is when FY23 will be ending. You then liquidate over that next 90 days. So that's the 27 months. For FY24, we're in the award year 1 right now. We're going through, we're having the districts establish these pieces, but the real key that we're talking about now is FY25. We're now in the planning phases for, oh, sorry about that. presentation just disappeared on me. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Here we go.
You can still see it on our end, Tom.
Okay. So the FY25 is in the planning phases. And as you see here, that's the component by which that we've now submitted our application to the federal government. We've established as well what the IDEA FY25 subrecipient application is in place for the LEAs to submit to us by May 9th. So elements in relationship to the subrecipient application to be aware of. The FY24 final allocation is the preliminary award of the FY25 application. That's how we know what they're working with, even though we don't have our final numbers yet from the federal government. There must be a separate accounting system in place by which that they can manage and look at IDA funds. It can't be kind of commingled with other funds. And the purpose of these funds is to supplement, not supplant, local and state effort. They need to show the obligation of the district is to expend and budget the same, if not more, as the last time they would have met. It's called maintenance of effort, that next piece there. And this is a component by which that we require the district to show an eligibility standard of their projected special education budget of next year, so that they're going to be showing us that they're going to be projecting to spend the same, if not more. And then in relationship to compliance, that they're looking at last year's expenditures. Did they actually spend the same, if not more? And so what we do is we have it's called an MOE calculator that each district goes through and places in those resources in relationship to special education expenditures, showing what they would have actually expended. And they use the audited EFS report from the Bureau of Fiscal Services as the foundation for this, that is then reviewed. Those pieces are monitored, and then there are allowable exceptions and adjustments that if a district has an explanation as to why they didn't spend the same, if not more, they place that in there. And it could be because they had high cost students leaving the district. They may have high cost teachers or professionals leaving, then hire ones at a lower rate. That difference they can use if they have a decrease in relationship to child count overall. And then the grantees must be able to demonstrate these expenditures and justified. So I'm basically explaining it in our narrative in the grant, and then when they're audited in relationship to these resources to show that they are using them for allowable costs. The last piece has to do with significant disproportionality. As I said before, we changed that measure a couple of years ago. So more districts are actually being identified with significant disproportionality than in the past. And what we've done is that in the grant, sometimes getting all the data to us before these timelines happen can be a challenge. So we have that those districts who are even potentially significant disproportionate are identified and communicated with the state, from the State Department, to ensure that they're setting aside resources in order to support these particular populations that would have been identified. We do communicate with them later on if their significant disproportionality piece doesn't raise to the level of significance, but it's still disproportionate, of being able to ensure that they have these pieces in place, and either they can do those elements in relationship to a mandated piece if they were identified with being mandated, and or voluntarily do some of these supports. Some of the other components that are changes actually to the application include the GEPA questions that I mentioned before. These are components now that each district must answer their own questions in relationship to the 4 questions describing how their mission and policies contribute to equitable access and participation in their activities. They're going to be talking about their proposed activities and are there any barriers that the district would run into in relationship to impeding their ability to ensure access and participation. Based on those barriers, what steps are they taking to address those barriers in relationship to this to ensure there's equal access and participation, and what is their timeline in relationship to addressing these barriers? This would be the first time we're going to be asking these questions of the districts, so we're going to be going through this and get our own baseline in relationship to some of these answers, so that next year's review and years after we'll have a better understanding and or baseline by which to measure some of their answers too. So this is actually in the application itself. And as you see now, they're going to put in what their goal is, what their activities are, and those 4 questions related to their activities, related to their goals. You see there are 3 elements here. Each allocation possibly can have 3 different budgets in relationship to, there's the public school activities, which is O1. If they have a private nonprofit school, which would be O2, they would have a budget in relationship to those elements that they're using for their proportionate share dollars. And then if there was number 3, O3, in relationship to coordinated early intervening services, that has to do with the significant disproportionality piece if they have those elements in relationship to there and have been identified. This goes through those, shows those different budgets that we have. And one thing we do, we ensure that the activities align with the budget line items. So what the district has to do, they have to tag their goals and their activities to the budget so that we have kind of a line by which that we know what you're saying you're going to do and what you're actually doing. So that's kind of the direction that we do with that in the grant, so that we have those connections between the possible 3 budgets out of the 1 allocation. One other change that is happening, and I mentioned about the proportionate share calculation, has to do with the meaningful and timely consultation with non-for-profit private schools. There is the obligation that any district that has a non-for-profit private or non-public school within the boundaries of the district, they need to have a meaningful and timely consultation at least annually, where they're going to talk about elements in relationship to child find, and they talk about other components in relationship to parentally placed private school children. A definition of a school in Connecticut is that they have at least an elementary grade and or a secondary grade. And the attendance to this should happen for both the representative and asking for any parents. From this, they then establish a formula that's in the grant for a proportionate share calculation. We've now made a change in this because we're now requiring the district to answer the questions around the list that we have from directory manager around the nonprofit schools. So what we're adding in here, we're now placing in the schools that the districts need to be communicating with. We're trying to coordinate all 3 of our systems of our EGMS, which is the grant, the CT SEDS, that information coming through with that information we have around child count, around the tiles that are completed, and then as well the third piece around directory manager of those elements that we have as a state department that is from those non-publics of what they support and how they manage in relationship to the state of Connecticut. So we're uploading this now into the district, into the application, actually, that shows the attendance for the student, for the consultation, so that they have to, in that consultation, both record, did you ask them to come? Did they attend? And what you describe in relationship to that event. Did you do your child find piece? Was there proportionate share elements explained? Did you talk about how, when, and where supports would be in place, and any written documentation of the explanation of if there's a difference between what they talked about. So this is secondarily now an affirmation page. We now want those who attended the meaningful consultation to sign that it truly was meaningful. Okay, so we have not only did you attend, but did you actually have an affirmation that it was a back and forth conversation? Because part of what we want to do is ensure that the districts have these open lines of communication and that information is being passed back and forth. And so it talks in here that the following representatives and parents give affirmation of their participation in the meeting, which included the components listed above, and already talked about those. So one thing that we're doing with those not-for-profit, non-public schools is that we're going to be doing now an annual meaningful consultation assembly. We're going to be doing it on each 10/31. We're going to be inviting all the LEAs that have non-publics and the non-publics to come to one meeting so that they're all hearing the same thing, so that we can have greater consistency between districts. Part of what CT SEDS has been doing for us is giving that consistency so that we now have a tile of what a parentally placed private school student would be filled out in relationship to CT SEDS, and as well if there was an individualized services plan put in place. So part of what we do with that is that we're inviting them all. We're going to talk about the federal guidelines in relationship to those parentally placed private school students, talking about the obligation of the LEA to ensure that they're having their meaningful consultation, talking about what the proportionate share calculation looks like in the process itself, and ensuring that there's a perspective back and forth between what the LEA has and those non-publics. The last piece that I wanted you to be aware of that we're still in place is our fiscal monitoring. We're in the process now of basically wrapping up all of the moderate, those individuals in the moderate range and connecting with those with the high active risk to review their information that they've forwarded to the State Department. We're reviewing these pieces on a regular basis. Again, the running risk runs basically January 1st to December 31st. We review all districts in relationship to the use of IDEA funds and have a risk rubric that has multiple risk factors that allow us to measure if the district is in non-active, minor, low, mild, moderate, high active 1 or high active 2, meaning high active 2, immediate actions required. We need to go in there and address things. High active 1 would be they need to forward us information, intensive supports to look at why you're in this place. And the real key is, how do we get you out of high risk? Not that risk is bad, but some of the elements that you're engaging in put us to need to give you more supports. Similarly, in relationship to mild or moderate active risk, we don't want you to go into high risk. So we meet with them ahead of time to say, what do you as a district consider some of your challenges, do some of your own kind of root analysis, and we'll help you with targeted supports in those areas. So, as I said before, the grant was posted in March. Application started so that we know that someone in the district is aware of it. Is April 3rd. Every district has started their application and is due May 9th. From the perspective, things are looking well with this as well. We have some other resources that we've put out for the districts to utilize out of IDEA. So I wanted to end with a blessing as we go through this. Some of you may be aware this is probably my last presentation to the SAC. I'll be looking to retire in January of this year, but I wanted you all to know that it's been a pleasure working with you all and being a resource for you. And any questions, certainly continue to reach out for that. But I did want to say that may the sun bring you new energy by day, may the moon softly restore you by night. May the rain wash away your worries. May the breeze blow new strength into your being. May you walk gently through the world and know its beauty all the days of your life. Thank you very much. Any questions for me?
Yeah, I know, that was pretty.
Tom, we're tearing up over here in the room, but
Tom,
thank you for the
TWR status.
Yeah. We all blocked our ears when you said you were leaving.
You have a question?
You go.
Tom, hi, this is Susan. I have a quick question. Is the meaningful private consultation a CFDE or is it an OSEP requirement?
It's an OSEP requirement. And so but to have, we establish, again, a proportionate share calculation in each district's based on their child count. And they have an obligation to spend at least the amount of resources. And part of what they talk about in their meaningful consultation is how that number was established and what they're going to do, how, when, and where equitable service will be delivered. It's the district's decision in relationship if they're indirect or direct services. So it might be an indirect, say, through a training versus direct services. They have a speech and language pathologist that's going to work with a student who has dyslexia, but goes to St. Joseph's and needs those supports. And so that's the conversation they have with all the non-for-profit, non-public private schools that are within the boundaries of their district.
Okay. Great, thank you. Tom, did you?
Yeah, again, thanks, Tom, as always, for all the years of your presentations and service. We appreciate it. Haven't been on the SAC for a while, worked with you for a while. We appreciate that. Around the meaningful consultation, because it's something that's a little bit new to me. So you're talking, these are non-public or not-for-profit, non-public schools. These are not APSEPs, special education programming schools. These are like the Xaviers and the St. Joe's and those sort of schools.
But it can be, it can be an APSEP because this is for parentally placed private school students. If a parent chooses to pay the tuition, okay, and basically this parent has rejected the IEP in district, okay, and looking to place their child in a non-for-profit, non-public private school. Now, those elements you bring out clearly that it's lots of time that's for religious reasons, but say there's a particular parent who wants to place a student in an APSEP.
Private
Okay.
pay.
That's right. So it'd be
Okay.
private pay. So that's the conversation why we still invite the APSEPs to come. The majority, certainly of usually their population are PPT or settlement agreement placed kids, right? Those kids aren't part of this calculation, part of the
I got you.
conversation.
Okay, all right, and that's only within their, like, so each town's responsible, each LEA is responsible for talking to the schools within their district.
Correct.
Even if the students reside in another town, because often
That's
they do.
correct.
Right, so
That's
they
right.
reside in Guilford, but they go to Xavier, but that's up to Middletown to
Correct.
talk to Xavier. I'm just using that example. I'm
Yes,
not
I understand. Yep.
About that student.
About those students that were
those
identified.
students that are private pay, private placement, and again, the same goes for whether it's Oak Hill or whatever. If it's a
Exactly.
private pay placement in Oak Hill and Hartford, then Hartford will be responsible for talking to
Exactly.
that. Okay.
Exactly. And the other element that happens there is that they're responsible to have a conversation of what child find looks like. Because part of this is to ensure that those kids aren't slipping through the cracks.
Yeah.
And to ensure that the non-public, if you think you have a kid that needs to be evaluated, you need to tell us so that we can do that eval. And it is the one time where there's actually the district can do the referral and the determination, and the district by which that the LEA resides in, right? They can do that as well. It's one time when they can have both of them doing that eval piece, because part of it is to ensure that these students aren't slipping through the cracks and have an understanding.
Awesome.
Anna?
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Tom,
Sure.
this is Susan again. Did that include private preschool placement?
A school has to be with a kindergarten.
Okay.
So if they don't have a K, they would not be considered a school. So charters and like nursery school programs, et cetera, if they don't have a K, they're not invited to this meeting. Make sense? Anna?
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there anybody else?
Anna's got a question. I see it. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, I mean, I know this has always been part of, APSEPs have always been part of this. It's not a change for APSEPs, correct? Just
Correct.
kind of making sure there's nothing different for APSEPs.
There's nothing different. What is a little different is, to be candid, we're highlighting the fact that the districts need to be inviting the APSEPs, because part of what happens is that, well, we don't have anybody, there's no need for us to come. But we really want that conversation and really want the opportunity by which that those new directors are meeting some of the players in the non-public that's within their boundaries of the school. And part of it is as well as to just kind of get an understanding of what initiatives are happening and getting better communication. It's part of the reason why we're going to be having that meaningful consultation assembly. We want everybody coming to the same place and hearing the same things. Because as you know, Anna, in the past, before we had CT SEDS, it was very different, even right next door districts, how they managed their ISPs and their parentally placed private school students. So CT SEDS has made this a lot more consistent in between the two districts. So part of what we're looking for is consistency, so that everybody's hearing the same message and getting the same answers, so that parents aren't confused out there as well. And so part of this is, again, as a joint effort, so that we as the State Department, if there's challenges, say that we're getting a lot of parents in non-public saying that it wasn't they weren't affirming that it was a meaningful consultation, we want to get involved there and say, what's going on? Why isn't this meaningful? Why aren't you having these opportunities to communicate, and to see if we can get involved to try to make sure that the lines of communication are open, that everybody's hearing the same thing, and we have a consistency across the state.
Thank you,
Very
Tom.
good. Thank you, Anna. Anybody else? Well, great seeing you all this morning. I don't know, I believe Kirsten is next. I will, I guess, pass this over to Brian. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Take care. Bye, Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
Great day.
You too.
Anybody need a 1 minute stretch or?
After Boudreaux, you need
all
like
good?
half an hour straight.
There you go. Feel free to get out and shake the leaves out or whatever that is.
Back in the classroom.
It's been a long time since.
He does an hour and a half.
Yes.
Packs it in there.
Yes.
That's good.
Don't blink or don't.
We can move on if you want.
Sure, yeah, so the next part of our update from the Bureau of Special Education is an overview of our data related to our dispute resolution system and the data we report federally, also known as Table 7. And so we have Kirsten Dovenberg here today. I'll let Kirsten introduce herself in a minute. She's a newer member of our team, but how many months has it been?
Gosh, 7?
7 months?
7 months.
7 months since joining the
How
new
many
process
months? So
unit.
that's new.
The 7 months I'm in.
Yeah, but Kirsten, sorry?
I'm so sorry. I thought I was unmuted. I was like, is it
Oh, no problem, Jolie.
Hi, Jolie.
I expected Kirsten online, so that was me I was mumbling. Is Attorney Dovenberg in person? So
She's here.
that is good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Kirsten's part of our due process unit that oversees hearing, due process hearings, mediation, and our formal complaints. And our goal for our due process unit is to ensure that those supports and those mechanisms are happening, but also to analyze the data and proactively support parents and districts to reduce the need to access those services. And so that's part of the work that we do as well. And we're very fortunate in that Kirsten, before coming to the State Department, worked as a mediator with our school districts and parents and have established relationships. And having that insight and expertise has been very appreciated from the department. So today, what we're going to do is have Kirsten give you an overview of the Table 7 data. And then we have a span of the last few years, I think, so you can see kind of some trends and the differences in, I'm going to try to share that up on the screen there for folks online. Hopefully it's going to be there.
Everybody have a copy? What do you
No, not an
okay.
in-person copy.
Oh, is that one of the things I emailed to us?
Yeah,
Maybe. Did it?
yeah. I don't think it was emailed honestly to in the reminder,
Okay.
but we can do that right now. And I'm noticing it's not showing up here on the screen for me to select.
Tom, were you asking about the Tom Boudreaux's presentation?
No, Jolie, this is the Table 7 data.
We're asking if I emailed it.
Yeah, I'm gonna forward it to you right now, Jolie, if you want
Okay.
to send it electronically, and then I might need some assistance from the CAPS folks here to help me find this, because this is through their online system here, and I'm not seeing it as an option.
Brian, if I have it, I can share it on my end.
Oh, that would be great, Missy. Thank you.
Missy, I'm sending to you right now.
Thanks,
All right.
Jolie.
You're welcome. I just sent Missy.
I'll stop sharing here.
Well, would you like me to get started while we're waiting for that to all flow? First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. I've been hearing about SAC from Jolie and from Sean and from Brian for quite some time. So I'm thrilled to be able to be here today with all of you, and in person for some of us.
Yeah.
Hello and not in person, but I'm happy to be here. As Brian said, I'm new to the Bureau, but I'm not new to special education and special education law. I practice as a parent's attorney I was first a teacher. I did then move into law school. I worked at the Massachusetts Department of Ed in the Bureau of Special Education Appeals. I then worked as a parent's attorney. I did different things with curriculum development when my 4 kiddos were really little. And then I worked simultaneously as a hearing officer in New York and as a mediator in Connecticut. So, and I'm new to the Bureau, but I'm not new to this world, and I've been thrilled to be here. It's been great getting to know everybody at the state and everybody out in the field. So I really appreciate you being here. So as Brian said, being here today, As Brian said, I'm going over the numbers. It's raw numbers. So we're going to talk about the numbers of what we saw, and then I'll give you a little color of the way we look at it. I love numbers. I love looking at it. I think we get so much information out of that. It's interesting because you'll see that we have 5 years of data provided for you once it does pop up there. And it's this unique 5 years, it's COVID. And so we do see some patterns that are there, which is interesting. And then I'll give you a brief overview of what's happened with fully adjudicated hearings over the past year, and then moving forward into a little update on mediation. So that's the way we're looking at this. So we're starting with state complaints.
All right, can I interrupt you for a minute, please?
Sure.
Whoever is sharing now needs to stop sharing because it doesn't appear to allow me to share.
Oh.
And I don't understand that since I'm the host. It boggles my mind. But all right,
There you go.
can you see that now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, sort of.
Blow it up. Take a bit.
Is there a
Well,
way
I
to
did, but it
zoom in on maybe just the top part first? Yeah, that's much better. There we go.
how's that?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the data that we report every year. And if you look across the board, we're starting with state complaints. We'll then move into mediations and due process hearings. So state complaints this past year, we had 207 filed. Now it's interesting because that is quite a big jump from what we've seen in the previous years. But what I find is an interesting fact is how many were issued, how many corrective actions were actually issued, or reports were issued. And that's more consistent. It's a little bit higher, but that was the number of 81. So it's not as large of a jump as we saw with the total number of complaints that came in. And I can give you some color as to thoughts with that. Following that, out of those 81 reports that were actually issued, 50 of those had corrective action. Okay, so out of all the complaints, only 50 had things in which the district had to have some type of corrective action. They were consistently within timelines. We saw that there was, at the time of this report, there were a few that were pending because these reports are filed in October. It's all done in the end of October, November. So it's all done at the end of the fall. So at that time, there were still some that were there. There were 116 complaints that were dismissed, and that can be for a variety of reasons. It's often because there is a claim that isn't something that we can investigate. And so it has to be a concern that it is actually a claim that we can investigate based on IDEA. So sometimes we just get a complaint that doesn't meet the criteria that's there. Parents are allowed to refile. So if they are dismissed because we don't have action that we can make, that we can, anything we can investigate, parents are able to refile, but sometimes they're dismissed for a variety of reasons. So if you move on to our mediation requests, we had 315 mediation requests. Frankly, I'm hoping that number will go up because I love people coming to mediation. I think it's a great way for conflict resolution. And it's a place in which we're expanding rapidly right now. So we did have 315 last year. There were 197 held. And I'm pleased to report this number isn't actually in here, but 80% of those reached agreement. That is a huge number, and we are far ahead of our colleagues in other states. The average is around 68% across the country. So having 80% is very strong. We're consistently around 79, 80% in Connecticut for resolutions during a mediation. Mediations that were withdrawn, those I'm jumping down to the bottom here, there were 56. And that happens for a variety of reasons. Sometimes once mediation is filed, the parties come together and they're able to discuss things independent of being in mediation, and they're able to resolve things between parent and school district, or they're able to come together with the two lawyers that they're both represented before they actually go to mediation. Sometimes mediation is just the jumping off point in which people can come together and have these discussions. So that's why we do see some, again, that's pretty consistent. You'll see across the 5 years that with mediations that are withdrawn, 60, 56, 32, 42, 56. So we're in the same numbers. Looking right now, we don't have that data here because we don't report it out, but we're on track to have consistent numbers for next year. So due process complaints. This is always interesting. We have 248 that were filed last year. Again, that's a bit higher than we saw the previous 2 years in particular. I think that you can take a lot from COVID as to what things were happening at that period of time. If you look at the numbers on 2018, 262 were filed, which is 20 higher than what we had last year. And so we're still in the same range. I think you do see some hiccups, that 195 in 2020 is lower. And I would say that part of that does have to do with, and 218 in 2021, it was a unique time and a lot was happening with COVID. And the interesting part of all of those 248 due process complaints that were filed, last year we only had 10 that were fully adjudicated hearings. And so I'll go over the details of those, but we do have a lot come in, many of them settle. Mediation is an effective tool for settling due process complaints that come in. And we're finding, as I said, 80% of the time they settle in mediation. So it is an effective approach. We also have a lot of due process complaints that settle during the resolution period. And this is an opportunity, if you're not familiar with the resolution meetings, it is an opportunity, again, for the school district and the families to come together prior to the required, there's a 30-day period in which you have the opportunity to come together and try to resolve things. It's the idea, and it was created under IDEA, was to allow the school district to cure anything that could potentially have been a concern. And so it gives you that last chance to try to come together. People use resolution sessions, they're very effective, but sometimes people choose mediation over a resolution meeting, which you have the right to do because a mediation is confidential. A resolution session is not confidential. So on the eve of jumping into a due process hearing, a lot of people choose mediation because of that confidential nature. So they could really discuss things. It's not going to come back up at the due process hearing that's on the horizon. But we have found that that's very successful. We did last year have 6 expedited. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Question.
Jeff has his hand up, so I think he has a question.
Yes, Jeff. Thank you, Brian.
Yep. Jeff, you have to unmute.
Okay, I wanted to know what the columns were. So I know that the right column is the last year, but which, so you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to, how far back it was going. So it was, okay. I just wanted to know. All right. Thank you. That's good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
So, expedited hearings. Expedited hearings relate to disciplinary matters. We had 6 last year. At the time that this was printed, it said that there was 1 still pending. That one actually did not go to a full due process hearing. And so most of the due process hearings are all of them from last year. They were an expedited matter, were dismissed. That can be for a number of reasons why they're dismissed, but all of them were dismissed. We actually did not have any fully adjudicated due process hearings or an expedited matter. So I'll go through, and if you have any questions about the data, I know I went through that quickly and you'll all get this, and so you can take a look at this. If you don't have any questions, I'll move on to going through some of our adjudicated hearings. Any questions about the data?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
You said you were looking forward to increasing mediation requests. How are you going to make that?
Well, I'm so excited. We just hired 6 new mediators.
Wow.
And so it's great.
Office of Mediation.
That was part of the legislation last year to have a mediation coordinator and
Okay.
an assistant coordinator to carry out the activities of which Kirsten has been leading this year
Awesome.
before our new folks come on board.
So it's, I'm thrilled. We went from 3 to 9. That's a great increase.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited, and they're highly skilled, which is great. We have this robust school coming in, and they are well experienced special education mediators.
Will there be any parent-like education though on office of mediation, that it exists and what it is and?
Absolutely, and this is and as Jane knows, where is Jane over there? Hello, Jane. We also partner a lot. Excuse me. Part with CPAC, but also Siobhan, who runs our VSD call center. She is a potential tool in this communication as well. We do a lot of training with that. I have a meeting actually tomorrow with Siobhan talking about this and how we can outreach more with parents. So absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So going on to our fully adjudicated, I'll just give you, again, some raw information, and then we'll go through some that just of interest to keep you updated. And here's some. So we did, out of the 10 fully adjudicated hearings, there were 4 hearings in which the district prevailed and 5 hearings in which the parent prevailed. There's one that was the parent prevailed and the district prevailed, and I can go into some details about that. That's always interesting because sometimes the relief sought by one party is not what the hearing officer grants. And that was that particular situation. So the hearing officer actually did find there were some violations, but did not award what was requested. And that's why we have one, the parent and the district prevailed. Out of the 6 hearings, there were, out of all the 10 fully adjudicated hearings, 6 were with pro se parents. And I think that's an interesting fact to highlight because people frequently ask, do I need an attorney to go to a due process hearing? The answer is no, but it typically is done. So you definitely do not. I mean, 6 out of our 10 were pro se parents. And truly the history behind IDEA, it was developed not to be as litigious. It was developed in order for a parent to be able to do that. And we take that really seriously. And so parents were there and they did prevail. Of the 5 hearings where the parents prevailed, 3 of them were pro se. So there were 6 pro se parents, and out of the 5 where the parents did prevail, there were 3 were pro se parents, which is, again, goes to show you that you absolutely can do a due process hearing without an attorney, and parents do prevail. Actually, and that's last year, it was higher than when they were with an attorney. And so I know it can be a confusing, challenging process. We're here to work people through that process, but parents are able to do it and they do prevail. 3 of the 10 hearings were IEEs. As I think everybody knows in this room, if a parent requests an IEE and the district denies it, they are required to automatically file for a due process hearing.
And an IE is.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
We have an
independent
acronym.
educational evaluation. The world of acronyms, man, there's so many. So if you're looking for an evaluation done by an outside evaluator, and that is part of your procedure in state bar, is that right? You can request that to the school district. The school district does not have to grant it, but if they do not grant that request for you to go to somebody outside, they must immediately file for a due process hearing and defend their evaluation to say that, no, we did a good enough job. We feel this evaluation was comprehensive. It did exactly what we needed to do. We stand by this evaluation, and they must immediately file for due process. Yeah.
I just wanted, so so the PPT says we want to hire a neuropsych or somebody to do an evaluation. That's not an IE.
Correct.
If a parent says, I want to hire, or I want somebody who's not paid by the district to do the evaluation, that's an IE.
Correct. Thank you. Yes. And so out of those 3, there were IEEs. 1 time there was a due process hearing. 1 time the parent prevailed, and 2 times the district prevailed. So those, I'm not going to review the information about the IEEs because it is an evaluation request. And so I'm not going to go into the details, but I will give you the details about the other due process hearings that were fully adjudicated. So I'm going to give you the case number and then give you a brief synopsis of that hearing. They're all on our website. So please, I do encourage you to look them up and read them if you're interested. It does give you some insight, but I'll give you a brief overview of each one, what the issue was, who prevailed, and the case number so you can look it up. So the first one is 230091. This was about offering FAPE. The hearing officer determined in this case the district did not provide FAPE, reasoning that the district relied on an evaluation that was not sufficient based on in light of the student's circumstances. And so they said the hearing officer ruled that you needed more information, and because you didn't get more information, the hearing officer found that FAPE was not provided. In this particular case, this was a pro se parent, and they prevailed. The next one is case number 230152. This was a child find case. Child find is there is an affirmative duty of the district to find any student that could be a student who requires special education services. This is not just an option, it is a duty. They are required to do so. It's affirmative duty. So in this particular matter, the hearing officer found that the district did fulfill its child find duties. The district had completed 2 comprehensive evaluations in all suspected areas of disability for this particular student and had completed them in the required timelines. And so ultimately, the hearing officer found for the district. This parent was represented by counsel. The next case is 230207. This was kind of an interesting case in that they're all interesting, but this was an eligibility and it had to do with jurisdiction. This particular case did involve a preschool student who did not receive immunizations, and they filed for due process. The parent was represented, requesting that the student be allowed to attend kindergarten, even though the student did not have the statutory requirements of immunizations. The hearing officer determined that she did not have the right to hear that case because it had nothing to do with IDEA. It's outside of IDEA. So the district prevailed in that case, and the parent was represented as well. The next case is 230222. This one had to do with who is responsible for the IEP. The student was, and I think you were just talking about this earlier, but the student was residing in one particular district. We're going to call that the home district. And the student was parentally placed, or actually this one was DCF placed in a different district. The issue was who was responsible for the student. The hearing officer ruled that the home district was still the responsible district because the placement was done by DCF. Yes.
Was this the child placed out of state?
This child was not placed out of state.
Okay, there was another one where the child was placed out of state.
Yes, this one is not where the child was placed out of state. And the parent prevailed, and the parent was pro se. This one is 230308. This is a child find case. In this particular case, the hearing officer determined that the evaluation of the student was the responsibility of the student where the student's private school is located. Again, we're similar to what we were just talking about. But if the student resides, and so let's take a town, we're in West Hartford, so we'll just use West Hartford as an example. If the student is a resident of West Hartford, but going to school in Bloomfield, thank you, in Bloomfield is responsible for doing the evaluation. However, this hearing officer found that if the parent comes to West Hartford and asks, I want you to also do an evaluation and prepare things for as far as FAPE is concerned for my child, the parent has the right to get that from either district. So the hearing officer found that the parent, this was the one where the parent prevailed in part and the district prevailed in part, that the hearing officer found that the district where the parent was residing should have conducted an evaluation, however, determined that failure to do that evaluation, the other district has an evaluation, did not amount to tuition at a unilateral placement. So it was a procedural violation, but it wasn't substantive enough to give rise to an award of a placement at a unilateral placement of the parents.
Yeah, so they're saying that both districts should be doing evaluations at the same time?
The district where the student is attending school needs to do an evaluation for eligibility. The district where the child resides, if the parent goes directly to that district, asking for more evaluations in regard to providing FAPE, then that district, the hearing officer determined that district must do those evaluations as far as FAPE is concerned. So what programming would be done for the student in that district? The next case is 230354. This was also a concern about FAPE. In this one, the hearing officer determined that there was a pattern of procedural violations that ultimately deprived the students of educational benefits and resulted in the failure to provide FAPE. The hearing officer in this case determined that the unilateral placement was appropriate. The parent prevailed. This case is currently on appeal. We don't know what will ultimately be determined, but it is on appeal. And it was filed on appeal at the beginning of February or January, right? I can't remember where it
I think it was January.
January. And so, yeah, the 45 days ran end of December. So January, it was filed on appeal. So stay tuned. I'll fill you in as we find out.
Did you say that was pro se or with an attorney?
That is with an attorney, both are represented. And then 230199. This is also this kind of a dual issue, both FAPE and IEE. The hearing officer determined that the district failed to appropriately program for the student and did not fully evaluate, and so order payment for unilateral placement and evaluations. The parent prevailed on this. So those are the ones that were not high. So then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those, or I'll move on to mediations.
I don't see any hands. I can't see. Louis.
I have my hand raised here.
Oh, I see the hand.
Hi, I just wanted to circle back to that issue where residence was
Yes.
involved. And I'm wondering, like, when you're discussing, when it was discussed over residence, was there any involvement of homeless in that specific, or was it, because, I do deal with this a lot. And primarily speaking, as it relates to homelessness, it's really where the child is intending or has the right to go to school, and not the town where they may be residing, albeit, they may be homeless, right? That has the responsibility of, and this is how I deal with it in terms of, responsibility of the IEP, implementing it and continuing to implement it, falls back on where the school of origin is located. I don't know whether or not the hearing officers do or don't contemplate the status or potential status of homelessness before determining the responsibilities of which district.
That's a great question. So two pieces with that. This particular matter did not have to do with homelessness, but I will tell you that we do spend a lot of time, extensive training of our hearing officers, and that is certainly a piece of it. We actually just had an extensive training with Larry Zerkel 2 weeks ago, and we talked about homelessness then as well. It is an important piece. Our hearing officers are trained on this. This particular matter didn't have to do with homelessness, but I appreciate what you're saying. It is important, and it's nuanced, and so it is important that they stay up to date on that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. And I wasn't aware that the hearing officers are trained on that. So I would be interested to see the level of, topic and what is shared with them. So I could certainly understand, what's being presented to them, and certainly that it aligns, with regards to the federal law, which is, ultimately under my oversight at the moment.
Absolutely. So what we do is we give case updates. We have case updates and overviews across the country, which is really helpful. I'm happy to share that with you if that's helpful. So we talk about whatever issue is there and relevant. So we give case updates and updates on our current law, and whatever comes up in that discussion is how we go through it. But I'm happy to share the information with you.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we could circle back to it, separately on our own to just sort of examine, ways to move forward that might improve, just even the baseline knowledge of school districts as it relates to these types of cases, because oftentimes nexus is confused in these equations, and that's never been really addressed by the state.
I would love to circle back with you, absolutely. And Nexus is a big place that we have a lot of questions, and so I appreciate that. Any conversations, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else with their hands up? Missy, can you say?
Looks like there isn't.
No, okay.
So quickly, I know we're running out of time. Mediations, just a general update. There was legislation passed in this past July, and it expanded our mediation process. I'm excited about that. As I said, we've hired 6 new mediators. We've worked very hard at the Bureau to make sure we've implemented the different aspects of the legislation. I will say that these new mediators have all received to date over 36 hours of mediation training. In the next 2 weeks, they'll be at 44. And so they have got, despite the fact they're all experienced, all but 2 have robust experience, 2 are much more specific in our state and have experience here and less with mediation, but they're all really highly qualified and prepared to go. I'm pleased to say that part of our training was done by Bill Loach and Lorraine Della Porta. And I learned during the training process that Bill was, I don't know if I shared this with you, Brian, Bill was actually involved in helping to come up with the appropriate amount of training for our mediators. And he helped with the drafting of the legislation. So it just was a wonderful coincidence that we used him to come in and help train, but he was the one that said suggested 40 hours. And so it was a beautiful reaction and they all worked together. But it's great. I'm thrilled of what's ahead for the mediation because as I said, with 9 on our panel now, we have a lot of opportunity and I'm hopeful that we can keep promoting this outside to the different stakeholders and to districts and parents and get them involved in mediation. So it's an exciting time.
And Kirsten, 100% of the mediations now are virtual. Is that for the most part or just about?
99.9. And that was really done. It was, we weren't sure. It was interesting when mediation shifted to a virtual. We weren't sure how it was going to happen as everything with COVID, but we found the feedback from the parents was so profound that they preferred the virtual because it was previously you were in a conference room and you were in usually a board of ed or you were in some place and you were there all day. Parents have been able to feel much more comfortable as if it was totally on even ground. They're in their own home and if their childcare needs or something that they need to do, it's been great. So the parents were our strongest advocates for keeping everything virtual. And I think it's also helpful for everybody, but it's been a real success. And I think we've seen a lot of success in mediations partially because of that.
I participated in mediation this year and both the parent and the district were seeking in-person mediation. We were told no.
Interesting.
Any way to,
it's yes, you can. I mean, that's the answer. Just call me.
Okay.
I'll give you my phone number.
Okay.
Call if you have any questions. Call me. So yes, you can do in person. Often, what needs to happen is that you can do that at 100%, and we can have mediators. I had one this year, and it ultimately didn't happen because they were able to settle it before the mediation, but we scheduled it and it was in person. So if you do prefer to have it in person to everybody, we can make that happen. Our mediators are able to do it. Ultimately, what I have found is most people, once I have a conversation with the parent or with the board, and we talk about mediation and they understand what it looks like, if they want to do it, they want to do it virtually, but we absolutely have the capabilities of doing it in person. So if that is a request, we can make that happen.
it was successful, but.
Yeah.
Call me. If you want to just call.
Wonderful. Next for you, right?
Yeah, is all set online, no other questions?
Sorry, I have one question.
Yes.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you had data on families who do not speak English and how often they access our dispute resolution options like mediation and due process.
You know, I don't have that, but that's really interesting. Let me see if I can find something like that.
Thank you.
What I can tell you is that when there is a request for a due process hearing or for a mediation, we facilitate a translator and there's a translator available. And so we do that in our office, but let me look into if I can give you some numbers for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. Appreciate it. So I don't have a lengthy bureau update today because of the two presentations, but just a, I know you're all disappointed. No PowerPoint. Having said that, I would like to share some exciting news. We had some staffing updates. So we're in the process of expanding our team. Kirsten mentioned our mediators. We're also in process of looking at and bringing on board some new surrogate parents. So that process has been engaged. Georgette Nemmer from our team, as well as Jen James, another member of our due process unit, have been engaged in that process of interviewing and bringing new folks on board for the start of next school year. Additionally, we have a new, and I might have mentioned this at a previous meeting, a special education bureau chief in our department. So originally, when I was hired for the State Department, that was my title as a bureau chief. And then subsequently, I was promoted to division director, although doing the same work within the same context. So it's wonderful to have another managerial level leader on the team within the department. And so we did an internal posting for that and are going to be doing interviews in early May. So our hope is by the start of next school year or just about, over the summer, we'll have a special education bureau chief to announce to assist with the administration of all of our activities. In addition to that, we also have just finished posting for 2 associate education consultants on the Bureau of Special Education. We are doing 13 interviews for 2 positions that were posted, and those have started. And for those of you that don't know, there are 3 levels of consultants at the state. Ed specialist is the lowest level, or the entry, I shouldn't say lowest, the entry level, and then associate education consultant, and then full consultant. And there's demonstrated effectiveness and evaluations for internal promotion along the way. So we'll have 2 new additional associate education consultants. Next week, or hopefully at the end of this week, we'll also have 2 ed specialist positions posted. Again, those will be open to the public for that entry level position at the state. And then finally, we'll have a 3rd new associate ed consultant coming to the team. So all told, we'll have 1 additional management position and 4 consultants coming in, and also 1 administrative assistant to assist with the work at the department. And part of those new, some of those new positions are based on the legislation that happened last year around the work in secondary transition and mediation. So we're very excited to have that expansion. So that was my announcement. I know there's a lot of activities and end of the year activities happening now. It's amazing that we're turning the calendar here to May very soon. We know our districts are hard at work and with state assessments this month and working to support that process. The spring PBT season is sprung, so there's a lot of activity. I do have some slides to share. Jane, I know in your last couple of CPAC updates, you mentioned translation within CT sets. We do have data on that, the number of translated documents that I'll send you. And you can see the variety of languages. We do anticipate the document that being expanded or continuing to increase due to some adjustments in CT sets. There was a default button that was very difficult to find and locate for districts that has been addressed. So additionally, I know we were waiting on the expansion of documentation for restraints and seclusions in the system to be translated, and now that is in place. So we do anticipate the number of documents, but we have, obviously Spanish is our highest. We have over 38,000 documents this year that have been translated in parents' native language within the system. Portuguese is the second highest number, and then we have, filling out the top 10 where we have a few thousand or 100 documents in all the other languages. again, those are only documents that are processed in the system. So outside evaluations and those other pieces, we're still, trying to work with and figure out the best solutions for districts and parents and families to have other meaningful documents translated for meaningful participation in the PPT process.
Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, Jane.
Jane, you're muted.
I see Zoom lets me know. This is from when you started, you talked about all the new staff you have. I'm just curious if it's the division director or the bureau chief who will say with the SAC.
Oh, yeah.
Not putting me on the spot. No, yeah, so that's a good question. I think within the process of the hiring and the interviewing process, we have a natural opportunity now with what's called our PSPESs to look at the work as a whole across the, don't ask me what they are. It's performance, yeah, that was at least $1.
Yeah.
PSPES. For the different activities and the work that happen. I mean, I will be involved with the State Advisory Council moving forward. I don't anticipate any adjustments there. But that doesn't mean that the bureau chief wouldn't be involved also, or in different capacities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jane.
I know.
We need to do some homework.
It's like a lawyer answering that question.
I play one with you.
We good? More?
Yeah, unless there's any other questions.
Ryan,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff and then Lena. Go ahead, Jeff.
do we have to salute you now?
We just salute you now, he said.
No. I don't have I've had this title for 5 years, so. Yeah, you could have saluted me 5 years ago, but no, not anymore.
Go to high school.
It's a different.
Lena?
Yes, Brian. I'm really concerned. We've been receiving so many phone calls, about, children that they behavior, mental health has been increasing.
Yeah.
Then I know that the school counselings, sometimes there are only one at school, and then the parents, they are really kind of looking for the first person is the school counsel. Then after they're looking for psychologists and psychiatrics, pediatric psychologists and psychiatrics and adolescents. That is very difficult to find it right now.
Yeah.
Then my major concern that I have is just I can see that it's going to be a reduction on the budget with mental health in Connecticut. Then I just want to let you know that in the past week, I received 2 phone calls from parents that they are ready to give the parental rights. Then that's one of the major things that I've been working to try to avoid the situation, to try to help the parents to get the resources and services that they needed. I know that they are good parents, but they are in desperate situation right now. Mm-hmm. Then I'm understanding. I never thought that I was going to receive a phone call for a parent to ask me, okay, I'm going to give my parental right, just tell me where can I go? What can I do? I'm trying to help the parent the best that I can to get all kind of ways, try to look it out for all kind of resources. Just try to avoid the situation. Is anything else that we can do with the Department of Education to get at least first-hand help for these parents and children? Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Yeah, I think, this is, you bring up a topic that is a priority for the council. One of our priorities is special education, social emotional health, and the impact and the overlap. And, we've seen and continue to hear from school districts the story that you're telling for a population of students. We had what comes to mind specifically, as well as we met with CAPSEF, Anna's organization, pretty recently to talk about the challenges of, the students that have very intensive needs that the school districts and the approved private schools are working collaboratively on and have yet to find a solution and find answers for students, which is, and there was discussions about the need for supports outside of the school and both for the family and for the educators to help the student become, in a spot where they are more regulated and more able to receive and the supports and services that the schools are offering. We had a great discussion about hospitalization settings and the lack of really beds and, that level of expertise more around the psychiatric and the clinical psychological aspects of the programming for students that there's a need. And what you described, Lena, is, for a parent to come to that conclusion, I can't imagine what that feels like. And they should know that they shouldn't be making those decisions in isolation without, support from many different agencies and entities, hopefully, in that particular case. But these are, some serious issues that we're looking to see, like you said, what else can we do from a state educational perspective or special education perspective for these students. I think we're going to, we're going to shift in and talk a little bit more about priorities around least restrictive environments. But I think maybe it was in Jane's update as well. We heard about the struggles that the local districts are having. We have to remember that the ESSER funds that were allocated to the state are ending. And although the districts are doing a good job overall of allocating those funds so that there aren't these kind of abrupt ends to positions, support, and placement. But when that money is allocated to staffing, what's going to replace that, for the years to come? And that's the same thing at the state level. We received a lot of money in a very short amount of time, and we're kind of getting to the point of now that that well is dry, what's our next? How are we going to rally around the resources we have to meet the increasing needs? It seems like. I don't mean to talk on, but I just have comments. But yes, Najee.
Just want to piggyback on that. We've been talking about it as a SAC for a lot of years as priority.
Yeah.
We know that since COVID, there's been an increase in student needs around mental health. As an agency, that's why that's why we started, partnered with agencies to provide urgent crisis centers for children who are in such crisis, yet not at the level of an emergency department, but in ongoing crisis. So we ask that people utilize these and understand what they are to be able to have that respite for that parent for a little time that they can spend with professionals and be there with the children for that short amount of time. So again, get an understanding of what the child's needs might be further going forward. But it is a big issue. We are, as an agency, addressing it in that way. But we see the need for more and more prolonged, sustained efforts and joint efforts with multiple agencies, community members to help this burgeoning population of student who is in a situation where no one entity can handle it by themselves, and certainly not. And it's very difficult for parents, and we want everybody to know that these centers are there, and people should look into them. That's all.
Thank you, Najee. What I could do too for the council is that there are some additional grants and fundings around mental health supports and services that our districts are taking advantage of. I can send some data around that for hiring school psychologists, social workers, and other clinical supports at the public school setting. So we can give some data on that. One of my colleagues, John Grassinelli, oversees that process. We also have a new, if you haven't seen it, we haven't mentioned it, we have a new data dashboard around from the school districts to show the number of mental health providers that they have in their districts as it relates to the number of students they have. And so that's another data point that we could look at to see. We know most of our high schools have, one social worker or two, for large populations of students. And so to be able to triage, like you said, Nachi, for students that are in crises, there is a coordinated effort that has to happen between family and school and community. And
Anna has her hand up. Anna?
Hi, I just wanted to add to that, the school psychologists, social workers, they are always needed. But for these crises that Lena was expressing and what Nachi was talking about, we need to really, really see what is needed to address that, because it is also the paraprofessional training and the de-escalation strategies, and really looking at some trauma-informed best practices models that work best with our population of students, in addition to social workers and counselors.
Oh, sorry.
So kind of on both, I think the data dashboard is very helpful, but I think one of the challenges though is that social workers have lots of responsibility. And if you are in a school district where you have one social worker, or school with one social worker and a large population, that social worker is focusing probably on that direct service from the student and not on a very large part of their job is that care coordination. And so I think, and that leads to the other point, and on top of what Anna was saying, is in many ways, when you think about academics, you're practicing them primarily in the school setting with maybe some homework and maybe some carryover into real life. When you're talking about behavior, it's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that care coordination piece and collaborating with families, identifying resources that are sometimes hard to find. And sometimes I know one resource we often try to talk to parents about is DCF voluntary services. As soon as they hear that first 3 letters, parents often will shut down on that. And so I think this is a very holistic, needs to be a very holistic conversation about how we can broaden both the scope of the supports within the schools, but also what's available. And I think that those mental health programs that Nachi was talking about, we've had several families utilize them with great success. Very quickly able to and get actionable referrals out, because that's another challenge, right? Is oftentimes they'll go to a hospital setting because there's a crisis, and they'll get a referral for a month from now, or 6 weeks from now, or even, unfortunately, even longer sometimes. And mental health crises don't.
It's true.
Not something to sit on and wait.
Yeah, so really it's looking from 2 different perspectives. It's the coordination perspective and then the implementation perspective.
If we're done with BS, your update, let's just keep saying it. Yes. I'm just not BS. Bureau of Special Education. Bureau of Special Education.
It must be 11:45.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say, it seems like we should naturally be rolling into our priorities and recommendations and start with social emotional. Seems like that's where our brains are right now. Good? Wait, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. You want to do that? You want to just talk about, so do we have a slide for that at all or no? I have our old priority and recommendations, but.
Yeah, I didn't have a slide, but we can send one. Yeah. The one pager?
They one pager, yeah, that's what I'm using.
Okay. Quick stretch group. Thanks, Kirsten.
Hi, thank you. Okay, we need, everybody looks like they need 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Break, you want, break now?
Yeah, just a quick restroom break.
Restroom break, yep.
Stay just 2 minutes on off. You want to stop the. I always need one. I'll stop the recording, but. We only have 10 minutes until we roll into our work groups afterwards. In our May 22nd meeting, is that correct? We're going to really focus on our priorities and recommendations and what we're going to roll forward next year and our council priorities. So right now, our council priorities are student voice, special education staffing, least restrictive environment, social emotional learning. So we're going to discuss least restrictive environment and restraint and seclusion. I'm stuttering today. Directly after this meeting. So I just remind everybody, even if you're not in the work groups, please stay for the OCA disability rights presentation. And we would love your input because this is going to help us inform our priorities and recommendations going forward on those subjects. So is there anybody that has any questions before we adjourn? Mr. Kosker.
I always have questions.
Yes.
Are we doing a summer session again? I mean.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
already discussed this. I just forgot.
No, we haven't. We'll
Okay.
probably
Do
plan
we
that.
have that July-ish session,
Yeah.
which we do a lot of the priority forming business then? Okay.
Right.
Do we know dates or not yet?
Not yet.
No,
Okay.
I
Stay
think
tuned. Okay.
if you want executive committee meeting coming
No,
up,
that's
I'm
fine.
sure
I
we'll
was just
discuss it.
curious,
Yeah.
Just because if we had it to put it on calendars.
Yeah.
We'll try to
Yeah.
do it in person again, because it's great to come together, but we'll have a hybrid option.
Yep.
Last year, we were in Cheshire, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were near the water.
That was the year
That was-
before.
Oh,
Oh, we were at the water at Old Saybrook. So what's being
Water
discussed?
was better. Well,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to really say anything.
Anybody-
I'm voting to go back there.
But.
So
Burn the Cheshire.
for those that are new, we do like a summer orientation training. We go over,
Yeah.
I guess we haven't yet for a while.
Recording in
Freedom of
progress.
Information.
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act, things like that. Well, we'll
Yeah.
have a new member orientation if we need that. I don't think we do this year. Separately?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll work on the dates and places on that, and I see Ms. Anna has your hand.
Yeah, but my question was just like, how do we stay on the same link or?
Oh, yes.
Right here.
Yeah, same
Yes, we
link.
we'll just stop recording.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we just stay on the same link for the meeting for the OCA.
Yep.
Yes.
Got it.
Wonderful. Okay, who else? Someone else has a question? Oh, I think we are good. Wait, Jeff?
Just to put the offer out there for a summer meeting,
Yes.
I belong to a boating club which owns an island.
Done.
And we could all go out there. It has power, it has internet, and you take a boat out and it's there and there's grills and picnic tables and a playground and a beach and kayaks. And so just keep that in your mind if you want to have a little summer.
How does that boat club do?
That's my vote.
You have some of the boat club, you need to say.
Okay, well, we'll put that on the agenda for executive committee meeting.
We'll do it for the executive committee, and that'll be because you were inviting people to come join the executive committee just to see what it does. Well, we'll have it at the boat club.
Then that would be not a realistic executive.
It's called look it up. It's called the Sprite Island Yacht Club. You can look it up and you'll see how amazing it is. It's like one of Connecticut's unbelievable gems.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff. Was the playground an announcement for me?
Yes.
No,
All
but
right.
there's a local pizza place that delivers.
Cool. Thank
All right.
you.
So I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, anyone motion to adjourn? Okay, we are adjourning at 11:54.
And seconded by Jen and.